So I'm just thankful that we made it till today. I know a couple of folks are trying to get in, and obviously we've put Zoom through its paces. So just a few things from a housekeeping perspective. In the chat, if you'll just write your name, what company you're with, your title. We just want to understand our audience and make sure that we're tailoring our conversation to those respectfully in the audience. This is an HR Fireside Chat, so really this time is for you. We do have some simply planned content, but the whole purpose is to come together in a community that's safe to get your questions answered and to make sure that you're getting what you need. So make sure that you leverage the chat. You can ask questions there. We'll open up the line, but really this session is really designed for you. Let's just give it a few more minutes. I know a couple of folks are trying to get in, and then we'll get started. So if we could maybe just take a few moments in the chat feature, if you just give us your name, your company, your title, just so we know who are the players on the line, and we'll do that. As a matter of fact, I'll do mine right now.
Did not mean to stop share.
It's okay. TKFA. Uh-oh, you did something, Allison.
Oh yeah, sometimes when I do stop share or the share, here I'll just pop this back up again. So those of you that are joining us, if you will, I'm gonna put this in the chat, if you'll just introduce yourself quickly. And also, just as a reminder, if you would like to have this content after we send this out, or after we get everything converted over for you to be able to watch, if you'll put your email address in the chat box to everyone. If you don't feel comfortable doing it to everyone, if you will select either Tiki or I and send that to us as well, that's fine as well. But putting your email in the chat gives us permission to send this information to you.
Yep. Let's see who we have. Good morning, Allison. Good morning, Morgan.
So we got Sarah.
Got Sarah. We have Shamira. See, I think a lot of folks' audio is trying to connect. Diana, Insights. Okay. Hi, Diana.
We had a few people whose Zoom is not cooperating with them today.
All right. So, again, this is a fireside chat. You know, there's a ton of information out there from very respectable sources. As a matter of fact, I did my homework this morning. Gartner just published some papers. It's one of my go-to sources for just staying abreast. That, Aon, Mercer, all of the big 5 consulting firms. And so really the purpose of this is, even though we know you're bombarded with information externally, that's all great sources. I think HR practitioners and organizations around the world are really trying to add value. The purpose of our session is really to have that intimate conversation, just to bring it down a notch to what you really need, and to share in a really humanistic way, what is it that we all need to get done. So this forum is originally designed for HR practitioners, talent leaders, our clients, and so there's a mixture of individuals on the call. And one of the most important things we can do is leverage and understand what challenges are you facing. If you've implemented some best practices, it's the intimacy of this dialogue to just kind of slow down the chatter, slow down the information. I think on average, every day I'm looking at probably 4 to 5 emails, going to webinars, looking at content, just to make sure that I stay abreast. So just trying to synthesize what that looks like. We're going to get started here in just a second. If you just joined, again, put your name, your title, your company in the chat. If you want this information sent to you, your email, by giving us your email, you're giving us permission to share with you. And again, this is more of an intimate setting, so we're going to collaborate and spend time together. I'm Tiki Favoroth. I am one of your co-hosts for today, Senior Partner and Managing Director with HR & Co. And we help our clients with all things people. It's where we thrive. It's what we love to do. And so as a way of giving back to those in our community, it's our pleasure, it's my honor to be able to spend time with you, to share everything that I know, and if I don't know it, to go find it. Allison, over to you.
Yeah, hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Nail-Malone of Malone Consultants Group, where we think, be, and do leadership differently. And so I am honored that you have decided to spend some of your time with us today. We take that very seriously, and we're also very grateful that you carve out this time for you. It's so important. We've talked about this in the previous sessions of how important it is to spend time and to carve out time to pour into you. Sometimes that means getting in master information. Sometimes that means getting away from information. So I'm really grateful that you're here today. So before we get started, what I'd love to do, make sure that you have your pen and paper, your journals, or a Word doc up, because we're going to be talking about some great stuff. But before we get started, I know for many of us, this is week 3 or 4, maybe for some of you week 8, or it feels like 8 months, I'm not sure. But I would love to know, this is an interactive process, so make sure that you got your cell phone out or a browser up. And I'd love for you to text, and this, you can write as many words as you want to, so you can text to 22333, and in the response place, put Allison in 677, and just write what's been a life hack for you during this time. I'd love to know, either personally or professionally, because I know as a leader, I've got family, I've got business, I've got clients, I've got my community, and then I've also got to take care of myself in all of this. So I would love to know, like, what's been a hashtag life hack for you during this time before we really get started. We'll kind of see what the live putting together a schedule. Awesome. More meditation. Awesome. What are some other things that have been working well for you during this time? We've focused a lot, and I know probably you guys are receiving, I know I have, I've been receiving a lot of emails. Come join this free webinar, come join this thing, or I'm going to give you another free resource, and it can be a lot. So I'd love to know what's been working for you versus what's not working for you. So what are some of the things? So you want to text to 22333, and in the message portion, put Allison in 677, and then whatever your response is. You can
Just while you're doing that, just so you know, if you are leading a department, a team, or a group, and you're working on your communication, this is a quick way to keep your virtual workforce engaged, or just even leaders. It's a way to keep things confidential. It's real time. And so this is a tool that we've been finding very helpful, just so people can see and be in the moment with you. So this is a Poll Everywhere, and I know they have a free version. Of course, they have a version that costs. So just as some insights there. Plenty of walks and fresh air, asking for help, meditation. What else?
I'll give you just a few more. And if you want to just put it in the chat, you can do that as well, if that's easier. Okay, well, I will go ahead and close this off. Lock it up. So let's get into the meat of this. Tiki, I know that you want to kind of share just a few ways of how we can maximize our time today.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks. So how do we maximize? One, add your email address to the chat if you'd like an official summary. Kind of gives us permission to send it to you. This session is for you. So while we do have some content, the beauty is best practice sharing, asking questions. This is a safe space for you to get what you need. You can take yourself off mute. You can ask in the chat. You can raise your hand. Or if you feel like you need something more specific, you can email us both, and our email addresses are here. We'll put it later to connect with you offline, because you may have a sensitive topic. So let's go to work.
All right. So today we're really focused on restructuring and expense reduction. And this is a challenging time for everyone. And this is probably for most a really uncomfortable topic, but a necessary topic that has to be considered during this kind of unusual time. So my portion of this is going to be talking about the leadership mindset around the things that Tiki will be talking about, and that's the process. So we're going to talk about the how and the when, but also how do we get our mindset ready for this. So lots of people are feeling the impact of outside distractions and the pressures on their ability to get their jobs done and meet professional and business goals. Between kind of the cynical political and social views, fear and worry of the unknown, and a myriad of other distractions, it can feel so much more difficult to show success or even feel like we're making success. And we're all kind of struggling under the social, economic, and political issues. We're also looking for better, stronger leaders to help us and the organizations we work for and kind of navigate through these turbulent waters. If ever there was a time to do some internal reflection and find ways to improve, and what I would even invite us to say is disrupt our abilities as a leader, it's now. So before we dive into the processes and how of the possibilities of expense reduction and staff restructuring, as leaders going in with the mindsets that is future focused, thinking and feeling, we will go into making those tough decisions more grounded, more clearly, and with more compassion as we move through this uncertain time. And so savvy managers and leaders understand the fundamentals of crisis management, at least on a theoretical level, right? Their careers kind of rise and fall on an individual's ability to rally their teams together, project deliberate calm and empathy, and take decisive action, and to communicate effectively. The most fortunate among them probably have not had to face a crisis quite like what we're experiencing today. And it's a global community, and it can feel devastating. The realities of a distracted workforce have been well documented, but is also being documented now. And according to a survey by Udemy, 70% of workers admit that they feel distracted when they're on the job. And 1 in 5 leaders admit to feeling almost always distracted. And so the problem appears even greater when we look at the results that they surveyed from our younger tenured professionals. So we're talking about our younger millennials and our Gen Zs, who admit to feeling distracted about 75% of the time. And this has really kind of expanded that even further. So how can we as leaders lead effectively and turn their team's attentions back to the challenges of meeting our corporate goals? And so here are some of the actions that best leaders take during times of crisis, and ideas for aspiring managers and their leaders as they look to strengthen their leadership muscle to prepare for kind of this world of unknowns. So number 1 is to find your anchor. So in the midst of the storm, it's the anchor that's going to keep the ship grounded. Organizational leaders should not only know their company values by heart, they should anchor those values by living them out and making those decisions based on that on a daily basis. So as these storms come, such as potentially looking at reducing your workforce or having to change what those expenses look like, it's important for all employees to understand what your company's values are and feel empowered to live them out every day. And so during our challenging times, it becomes especially important for us as leaders to stay laser focused on the vision of the company and move forward on team and company values. Sometimes this means taking a stand for what's right or wrong, but more often it means providing direction and guidance so employees know what direction to go to. Your anchor is also supported by your true core values and leading and communicating through that lens. Number 2 is to resist centralizing control. Now I will tell you, when I first kind of thought about disrupting leadership and how we do this, especially in a time like that kind of felt counterintuitive, to resist centralizing control. Well, during a crisis, top-down leadership doesn't always engender stability. It is vital that a leader resist centralizing control. The temptation in a time of crisis is for leaders to put themselves in the center of all the activity. It's understandable that this is a desire to ensure that all is well and that, that even though precisely the opposite is actually happening. To decentralize and create a network of teams requires absolute clarity and priority and intent. A leader cannot empower a team if there is any uncertainty in direction and priority. Even while prioritizing short term and making priorities crystal clear, leaders still need to kind of keep that long-term direction and purpose in their mind. And this is especially true on the topic that we're talking about today. Take, for instance, you're on a team to race to the North Pole. Traditionally, these teams have like 3 or 4 people. And so we're going to talk about a team of 3 racing to win the North Pole prize. In the team of 3, there's one person who is focused on the near and tactical, ensuring that the team kind of crosses those large crevices. They're the person in the front. The person that is the second person, they are the one who is kind of taking the lead role and really focusing on the far horizon, making sure that the team doesn't go around in circles. The leader is not in the front. They are not making those immediate decisions at the very beginning, but they're looking at it from the far span. They're following and navigating the course to the future, to where the goal is. The others of the rest of the team are kind of, again, the more tactical in the weeds. They're taking care of the food, they're taking care of the needs of the team. So not every decision should be made by the central office headquarters. Local teams are often the best position to judge the situation on the ground or in the front lines. And their decisions should not necessarily be second guessed, but yet you are guiding them. For example, in 2018, McKinsey & Company, which is a consulting organization, had about 44,000 employees that were in Guinea during the Ebola crisis. The mortality rate was pretty high, so naturally their headquartered leadership had to decide, should we send employees, every expatriate employee home, knowing that they could potentially lose a lot of credibility and probably not be able to go back. So the HQ leadership delegated to the local team. The leadership team said to the local leadership, you are the best ones to make the assessment because we can't judge all of the health risks on the ground for you as expats. And the team decided that the expats themselves would stay but send their families home. After 6 months, the organization as a whole established a rotation so that the expats could go visit their families even while remaining as skilled leadership on the ground. And corporate really couldn't make that call. They probably would have brought everybody home. But let's be careful with words. Autonomy does not mean in isolation. The McKinsey leaders said clearly, whether your people stay or not is your call. But the corporate leadership also was very clear that they wanted to have a discussion with the local leadership so that everyone has looked at it at every angle. And in the end, none of the expatriates contracted Ebola. So number 3 is create this as a possible environment every time. So even in the toughest of times, the best leaders work to counteract that cynical news and fear of the unknown just by focusing on what can be done. When employees have a clear picture of their goals at work and they feel supported and empowered by their teams, they will often stay focused. Each leader possesses a unique opportunity to create a state of calm for their team. The worst thing that a leader can do is act like nothing is happening, which I've seen, and keep their head down or tell people to keep their head down and just continue as business as usual. It's better to address the crisis and continue to communicate and over-communicate clearly about the work that needs to get done, while of course offering support along the way. And last but not least, I'm gonna repeat this over and over during the next couple of minutes, is that you are going to do the right thing and you're going to do the best that you can do. Almost every crisis is different. So I'll tell you, there's not a game plan for solving the crisis. However, there is a game plan, in my mind, for how you should approach the crisis. And it sounds deceptively simple, so I'm gonna say it again and again. You're going to do the right thing and you're going to do the best that you can do. After all, that's all you can do. And of course, I know that sounds more difficult than it sounds. However, I want you to know that you don't have to figure out what the right thing is all on your own. Nobody is smart enough or superhuman enough to do that. Instead, what I would really invite you to do, if you haven't done this already, is to really surround yourself with people and leaders whom you trust and whose values align with yours and those of your organization. And then collectively, you all will determine what the right thing is and do your best to act on it. For you, it might be learning that a member of your family might become critically ill with the virus. For others, it might be something quite different, like how am I going to get food to my kids that normally eat at school? Regardless, the way forward is clear. So basically saying, I'm going to do the right thing, and with a lot of people's help, I'll do the best that I can do. So I want you to repeat that over and over to yourself, because worry, fear, anxiety, pressure, and stress can be significantly reduced. It won't go away, but it can be reduced. And by the way, if you start off trying to do the right thing and it turns out that it's the wrong thing, you can pivot and adjust. Ego should be removed from the decision-making process, because changing your mind sometimes is the best thing that you can do. We're not trying to be right. We're trying to do the right thing. I'm going to say that again. We're not trying to be right. We're trying to do the right thing. So quickly, as I have a company that has about 500 or 100 employees, and 50 of them are in a cubicle, and 50 of them are literally on the front lines making the project. They're on the assembly line on the platform, or plant floor. And COVID happens, right? So what's the right thing? For the 50 people in the cubicles, you might send them home, even if it doesn't feel strictly fair. It will protect them and make the people on the assembly line safer as well. For the other 50 employees, the decision can be harder. Do you continue to manufacture at all? If so, perhaps you make masks or provide hospital supplies or other essentials. Maybe it's extending the manufacturing line so that people can work further apart. And that might mean you might not make as many products. It might mean that you're not as efficient as you always are. It might mean that for the minute, costs may go up. But that's something we should think about and do, because we want to protect our people. And above all, be upfront about these trade-offs, as well as the risk. I think that value-based leaders do not only acknowledge that there's an elephant in the room, but they clearly turn the floodlights on so that everyone can see the elephant. Leaders who think through how to do leadership differently and disrupt the status quo has the best chance of emerging from this current crisis with their conscience and their organization intact. And just as an example, like the airlines are letting people switch or cancel their airplane tickets without any fees. I love sports, so I knew that the MLB, or the Major League Baseball, they donated over $30 million to the ballpark employees across the country because they were going to lose their income. So I want you to think, sometimes making a decision may hurt the profitability in the moment, but the long-term impact is going to be very, very positive because you did the right thing. And so with that, have Tiki lead us into the process of this.
Yes. So thank you, Allison. I think one of the most important things that you've talked about today is really the leadership mindset. And so before we go into the process, let me just pause here. We've had some more people join. In the chat, if you'll just introduce yourself, your name, your title, your job, if you want this content, your email. But let me just pause here. We've covered a lot about leadership mindset. Why don't we just open up the lines, questions, comments, ideas, anything that you want us to share with others around what you've been doing from a leadership perspective. Don't be shy. Or you can put in a chat. Okay, we'll keep going. So one of the things about leadership without action, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's failure. And one of the reasons why we start out with leadership is to make sure that individuals, or you as leaders, are grounded in what you need to do. And that comes from your personal ethos and how you're managing. But if you are leading an organization as a leader, a owner, a founder, a president, a HR practitioner, you have to take action and you have to put the processes in place in order to do that. Again, there's a ton of industry research, but let's just get to the nuts and bolts of it. First and foremost, when you're going through expense reductions or looking at cost optimization, you have to understand your clear business needs and levers. Some companies have board of directors that they need to answer to and working with the client. Today, we're meeting with the board every other week to say what are our business needs and what are our levers. And as an HR practitioner, for most part, the biggest expense on the balance sheet is human capital. And so working in partnership with your leader or the organization or your leadership team that says, what are our business needs today and what are the levers we can pull? Some companies are looking at staff. Some may be looking, as Allison mentioned, looking at scheduling, reducing programs. There's many things that you can do as levers, and you need to put those levers in some clear buckets, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, in their phased approach. But in order to know what that phased approach is, you have to understand what are the business needs and when do we get to that critical peak that we need to pull levers. And so that's the biggest thing that needs to be taking place in your leadership discussions today around what is it that we need to do. The second thing is that you need to look at what are the opportunities to optimize costs. And so specifically in this particular thing, when it comes to talent, I'm going to talk about human capital. There are many things in play right now. We have the payroll protection program. We have the CARES Act that's offering different business resources, but we don't know when those funds are going to be available. So when you're looking at things like cost optimizations, are you running programs that even though they're nice to have, you may need to defer and defer those programs? Do you have certain benefits that employees are not using today that you may want to defer when those benefits are picked back up? Specifically when it comes to talent, one of the cost levers that you can pull versus doing RIFs is to put your organization in different buckets. One particular client, we just looked at, for example, executives, we looked at directors, we looked at managers, we looked at employees. And so we said, what's essential? And we decided to do some pay reductions across the board at each level. And so the first lever was looking at our executive team, and we just did across the board 10% cut. When we get to that second level, we may go to directors, to managers, and our ultimate goal is really two parts, is to not RIF anyone, so to do a reduction in workforce, and to not really impact our lower paid employees. That 10% would make a significant difference in their pay versus kind of leveling out the costs with some of that. Another expense reduction may be a furlough, or necessarily you're not terminating employees. Some furloughs, you still pay the cost of benefits, but employees go home and you actually reduce that labor cost. And one of the levers, you may say, what's really non-essential personnel all the way up to essential? And so how do you begin to look at what's the business needs and what's the levers we need to pull? So there are many things that you can do in your organization to have a strategic conversation about what matters. Just riffing everyone, letting everyone go, it's not going to stem the balance, because you'll still have unemployment insurance that you have to account for at some point. Obviously, if you're doing severance packages, you still have to look at that as a deferred cost or put that in your book. And then how are you bleeding out your organization if you haven't thought through talent? One of the things I can tell you is that we do have a tool as certified partners with Predictive Index. We can help do some strategy assessments or look at people on your team to look at how do you reorganize your organization to go back to what your business needs and drivers. What leaders and talent do you have today to do that? And what does it mean for some of the levers that you need to pull? So while there's an infinite list of ideas, I'm going to just tell you, you have to be working as a team to say, what are our needs and when do we pull the particular level? Thirdly, implementation and communication. We have emphasized this from the very beginning. You have to have a clear, documented plan. You cannot have people just saying, oh, we're going to do this, we've made a rash decision, and we're going to go. What's the plan? This is why we've made the decision. This is the impact to the organization, the people, the process, whatever. This is when we're going to do it. And this is where we're going to see the return or the uptick to it. And obviously, when you're communicating to different levels, when you're communicating to the board, they need a different set of information when you're communicating to your executive team, your directors, your managers, your employees. But you have to have a clear communication plan, because the inputs of that is going to go back to what does that look like from your business perspective? What levers did you pull? What's the trade-offs? Allison mentioned that. And then how do we communicate this to people? One of the most important things I need to tell you is that you will be, your organization will be remembered in how you treated people and what you did. Individuals understand it's very painful, but it's how you treat people that will matter the most. And then finally, really, how do you keep your team engaged and follow up? With one particular client, if we've had to riff, we have considered, we've created what's called a group of those individuals, and we're still reaching out and communicating and keeping them up to date. So even though unfortunately we've had to make a decision based upon the business needs, how do we keep those individuals engaged? How do we keep the employees that we do have today engaged? And how do we continue to follow up? Believe it or not, you guys, people are facing many challenges. I was just on a Yammer chat today about people working from home, and we assume that if people are working from home, they're in a good place. They're at home, they're with their families. But there's so many dynamics playing out. Some people are extroverts, they need people. Some individuals go to work to escape. Some people don't have a home office or situation, or they have sick kids or whatever. And so you need to be doing simple pulses to check in on how people are doing. Do they have what they need? And keeping them informed. Are we making progress? This is where we are this week. Here are the decisions that we need to make. This is how it's going to impact you. Allow people, invite people into the conversation, into the decisions around your organization. So let me just put a thing cap here. And again, it's hard to kind of give a peanut butter spread of everything that you do. What does your business need to accomplish by when? And what are the levers that you can pull to get there? If you're looking at cost optimization, put everything on the table. And just to use a personal example, when this started, me and my husband, we went through all of our bills, our discretionary spending, everything. And we said, what becomes the priority if we fall into a situation? And these are the levers that we'll need to pull in order to make sure that we can sustain ourselves over the long run. What's the plan, and how are you communicating that plan to your different stakeholder groups? Last week we sent out a communication plan template. It's very simple. You can modify it. If you want us to send that to you, we can. And then also too, how are you staying engaged and following up with your team? Something as simple as a survey monkey, something as simple as inviting people to a jam where you're using, for example, a poll everywhere. We just want to check in and do a quick pulse and have a 15-30-minute discussion about where people are. And so these are the things that you can consider in your strategic discussions. I will tell you, leadership without action will make your business fail. Not making a decision will make your business fail. It will put more pain on your organization, and writing things out why it's very future focused and this is possible, which is the mindset, without being able to make the tough decisions and know what the plan is and communicating to others what that plan is, will cause failure. So let me pause here. Again, this is a very interactive session. Is there anything that you need in particular that we can dive into, that we can help you with, or a situation that you may want us to discuss here? Or if there's anyone on the call that has best practices, please do share. So you can take yourself off mute. We'd love to hear. You can write it in chat. And we'd be more than answer any questions here. We have about roughly 10 minutes. I know we have another poll, but we want to just check in with you, make sure that you're getting what you need.
Vicky, there was a question in the chat by Keith.
Okay.
And Keith, we might need more information. So the question is, how important is the vision of the leader? And Tiki, if you'll just kind of talk to that, and if Keith, you need some additional clarity, we can either ask that here, or we're happy to jump on a quick brainstorming call with you too.
Yeah, I think so. One, I'm going to tell you guys, it's this is the time that leadership really matters, but you have to realize that you're leaders, or as a leader, you're going through this with everything else. I would say if you're very clear about your mission, your vision, your business needs. As a leader, it's going to be important that you are articulating to stakeholder groups, and those messages may be different. What is the plan? Our vision is to, whatever your company's mission or vision is, and during this crisis, this is what it looks like for us. We're going to treat our customers and our partners correct. We're going to treat our people right. We're going to, have a communication plan, but here are the decisions that we need to make. And I think as a leader, what's important to this now is not some big vision. It's really the bottom line on top. This is what we need to do. This is when we plan to do it. And here is the impact. You know what, guys? We're not going to lay everyone off, but you know what? Everybody needs to take a 5% cut. What that does is it keeps everyone with jobs. We think that this is a one-time. We may be able to give that back to you later. We may not. We may need people to work different hours, different schedules. We may need to have Alpha and Bravo teams, allow people to go home and be with families and people come in. So it needs to be what makes sense for your business. How is it going to drive stakeholder value and really contain everything that you need to do so that the organization is thriving on the other side of this? So, Keith, I'm not sure if that answered your question, but hopefully that's what's really
hit
matters.
it dead on.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this big thing. Like right now, people need to see vulnerability. I've watched so many CEO messages and just the pure vulnerability. And also, if you're a leader, sometimes just doing a 5-minute video saying, "Hey, troops, it's been 3 weeks, 4 weeks since we've been at home. Let me just recap to you some of how COVID-19 has impacted our business. Let's talk about some of the decisions we've had to make and what are some of those trade-offs. Let's share with you what we think the next 30 days will look like. And should we reach these areas, what does it mean?" It gives people time to prepare, time to figure out, hey, there's a Slack channel where we're thinking about how do we streamline or how do we create innovative ideas? How do we create a new category with our business? What can we be doing different? Innovation will come out of this, but you have to invite your team members to be a part of the party. And as Allison said, you cannot have this centralized control in all aspects where the same people are doing the same things, because you'll be surprised what emerging leaders and ideas that come up from your organization. Some employees may say, hey, you know what? I'm willing to be off the books for 2 or 3 weeks. Let me just take my PTO, which may stem costs, which you'll be able to reduce your balance sheet by some of the expenses that you have related to PTO or something else, but also allow your labor costs to go. I mean, there's so many combinations of things that you can do. So good question. What else?
So I'd love to hear from anyone else. I know Brock has been doing the 5-minute videos. So I don't know if you want to share like best practice on that, or if there's, Brock, if you want to go ahead and do that. And I'd love to hear from other people as we begin to wrap this up.
Yeah, so we, because Allison prodded me to do it, started doing some quick YouTube videos. And it's not natural for me to do that, but we did them and they've been a big hit with everybody. And then we've also looped in some of our plant managers. So our business is a little different. Our business is going great guns right now. This is, we're in the food chain, so everything's stressed to the max, is trying to get product out. We're very under the gun, we're working extra hours, things like that. So, but just sharing with everyone what's going on. So we have facilities in different areas of the country. But people are really enjoying the getting to know folks that we've had others come and put videos up as well about their plants and their experiences. And then we've taken it one step further. We have a lot of calls and a lot of video chats. And we're trying to making sure people put their video on so we can see people. And it's worked well. People have been very responsive to it. And we have a language barrier at some of our facilities. So we've had people do them in English and in Spanish. So that's really what keeps people informed. We had a lot of meetings over the weekend. People were really encouraged and liked the updates.
Thank you, Brock. I'd love to hear from anybody else, either a question or maybe a best practice that is working in your organization, whether you lead the company, lead a team, or lead within your department and colleagues. And then we'll start to wrap it up.
Okay, well, you guys, again, this is like we're just trying to bring it down. It's for you. If you don't have anything today, you can reach out. If you want a replay of this, please put your email in the chat. We really appreciate it. If there's anything that we can do to help you, your teams, we have so many tools, assessments, looking at team dynamics, looking at reorganization, engagement, you name it. If you need something right now, and again, there's a ton out there, let us know how we can help you do that. So, Allison, I'll let you take us home, and we'll stay respectful of everyone's time.
Yeah, so as we wrap it up, love to know, you can either do this in the chat or would love to have it in this handy poll everywhere. If you'll text or send a message through your web browser, what's been one thing that's been very helpful or useful or a great takeaway? Maybe it was even just I knew this, but I was reminded of that. So I'd love to hear, love to read what your kind of thoughts were. What did you find most helpful about our conversation today? And so if you'll and you can write as much as you want to in this, you can either do that in the chat or text to 22333, put in Allison N677, and then your response. Leadership plus action, yep. Remembering on the right thing, excellent. What are some things that are a good takeaway for you today? And again, you can either do this in the chat, take yourself off mute, or text it to 22333. The reminder that we're not trying to be right, we're trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. There was a comment in here. I want to thank you guys for putting this together. I have a call with our HR director this afternoon, and this has been incredible grounding for the conversation. That's it. It's grounding. So great. Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah.
Continue the conversations, okay?
Yeah.
You guys, as the comments are coming in, again, there are a lot of information out there. It's all credible. We just want to give back, make it a smaller venue. We're here for you. This is our way of giving back. If there's something we know, we're going to give it to you. We're going to tap into our clients, tap into our network, find the answer, because everybody's moving at an incredibly fast pace, and your people need you. I mean, you need something from your leadership. And I really appreciate Brock as a leader, president on the call today, sharing that, because it's through that vulnerability that we can begin multipliers during this time. So thank you for that. Be sure to put your name, your position, your company, your email, so we can share all the details from here today. So thank you.
Yep, so we'll just hang on a little bit longer, but this concludes our conversation today. We will convert this into a video, and then Tiki does a great job of kind of recapping the information we talk about today, as well as some of the common themes that you all have shared with us. I also want to invite you that Tiki and I will also do a complimentary 30-minute brainstorming session. If something in this conversation, like, oh, if I could just take it a little bit further, we would love to be that resource for you. You can reach out to either one of us, or just put in the chat and say, hey, reach out to me, would love that. Thank you so much for spending the time together today. I'm going to stop the recording.
Have a great week, you guys.